Hey guys, Brad McCraw, CEO, executive producer, Mosaic Pro Events, the crew call Pod. Man, this one's going to be a fun one. I've got a heart, and everybody that's joining me on this panel has got a heart for church production. We kind of all started there. I started there when I was probably 8 to 9 years old. My dad was the worship leader at our church. My grandparents were the pastors. So you know what that means. If your dad's the worship leader, you have to become an audio guy overnight and go in with him to do audio. So that's where my passion started in this industry, which led to it professionally. And then went back into ministry for a few years and came back out and started Mosaic. So I've got a heart for church production people. And the panel with me today, which will let them introduce themselves and talk about what they did in church. We're just all church production dudes at heart, now in the production world, in the industry, but still church production. I'll get it straight. Church production guys at heart. So let's just go down the line. We'll start to my right. Hayden, tell me, just introduce yourself and tell me, your ministry experience, both in the past and current. What are you doing still in ministry?
Yeah, well, I'm Hadden Newlander. I used to work at Scottsdale Bible Church for a handful of years. I grew up there.
What was your role there when you left?
When I left, I was the weekend video director / producer. So I kind of oversaw our main campus, video directing that, and working with all of our other campuses to make sure that, Sunday happened.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the big thing. So, yeah.
Started in the industry in church, I assume?
Yes. Yeah, started in the industry in church. Kind of just grew a love for same thing. Initially audio, that was one of those, and it was like, here's where you start.
Yep.
Hopped into producing for a little bit for a short period of time, and then got randomly tossed into video. And somebody was like,
and then here you are.
Hey, yes. Hey, can you do this? Guy. And I just rolled with it and had a love for video past that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sampy?
Hey, my name's Brandon. A lot of people in the industry know me as Sampy. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, how did I get that nickname? And I can't fully remember
That's interesting.
where I got it from. I think it was some drummer at church called me Sampy because he couldn't pronounce my last name.
I can't pronounce your last name.
There was already another Brandon around, and so because at one point, at one church I worked at, there was 4 Brandons on staff.
Of course, yeah.
And so, I was not the only brown ones because sometimes they'll go Brown Brandon or.
So for those just listening and not watching, Brandon is brown.
Yeah, I'm the tallest bearded Filipino you'll ever meet.
The rest of us are all white. Brandon is brown.
Yeah, no,
for the listener.
I got started in this industry through church.
What age?
I was. The first time I touched a live sound console, I was 17.
Yeah.
It was I was attending it was a small church. I think it was it wasn't even a denominational church. It was this community church. It was Arizona Community Church, and their audio engineer was sick one day, and they heard that I had done studio stuff because at that point I had dabbled in some studio work.
Anytime a church finds out that you know how to do anything technical, you're just on.
And then they're like, hey, can you fill in on this one thing? It's only an hour. We'll pay you $75. And I was like, sure. So hop behind an audio console, and the rest is history. And
awesome.
Yeah. So
next up, what do we got? Sam.
Howdy.
Hey.
My name is Sam. I grew up in church, and I think at 10 is when I saw some of my buddies gripping, which is following the camera operator around with cable.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to sit with my parents anymore.
Hey, that's a good reason.
That's a good reason.
Yeah. And, those pews
they're hard.
They're hard,
back in the day.
So I did that for about 2 years, and then as you got older and more responsibility was given to you, you moved up to handheld or sticks.
Yeah.
And then at 14, they bought a jib at the church I grew up in Phoenix, and no one knew how to run it. And so there was one guy there, and he was learning how to do it, and he showed me.
Which is also funny, classic church.
It's classic church.
Pastor comes back from a conference. Man, they had this cool jib. We should buy a jib.
Yeah.
Not to dunk on church, but classic church.
Yeah.
Well,
buy a jib without anybody knowing how to operate it.
The funny thing is, in the production room, there was they had done a colored piece of paper with how much they're saving up for it, and it was a thermometer, and each it took them 2 years to get it.
That's amazing.
But I started doing that. I did that for about 4 years, volunteering, no payment, no nothing. And then I would then eventually rent their jib before I bought my first one. and I would take that out on shows. American Idol, NBC Last Comic Standing. There's a bunch of stuff that kind of got my start in it.
Yeah.
But then fast forwarding to, we'll say 2020 when COVID hit, there was a bunch of churches in the Arizona area that were like, oh, hey, we want jibs because our online look wasn't that great. And they wanted to do that. So a whole bunch of other things. So I kind of met you.
That's where I met you.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we met at like a random, like, I think it was like
Hillsong
one
thing or
of, like, it was like a Hillsong book tour.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that we ran into each other there, and then like your name got passed to me again, like during that COVID time, and like you showed him, like, I know this guy, he's the third bearded wonder of the world.
But yeah, so we're here today,
Awesome.
and I've known you, Brad, since
Yeah.
2010. You
forever.
hired me for a gig,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Sam's now owner operator of his own jib company. Yeah, it all comes back together. It's amazing. PJ?
Yeah, I am PJ Peters. I started out in youth group of all places. I was part of student leadership and was greeting at the doors, and my youth leader came up to me. He's like, "You look like you don't enjoy this." And I was like, "You're right." He's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't know. The tech stuff looks fun." And then I
That's
proceeded
great.
to run ProPresenter
There's so
for
many
like
stories
6
like that.
months
Yeah.
straight,
I love that.
like nonstop ProPresenter every weekend. I was so stoked about it. And then learned the lighting console and was homeschooled. So I was lucky enough to be able to spend like my senior year just at church, constantly learning, like in the main auditorium. And then was able to branch off and was away from the church world for about like 10 years. I was in like Christian like markets doing stuff, but I was also just doing all kinds of other things. And I'm currently back serving as the lighting director at Central Church
Which
in
is
Las
amazing.
Vegas.
Yeah. So PJ
Where
does
it all began.
PJ does a little bit of both. He does some shows with us, some other clients, and then he's still, the weekend warrior. I love that. He's still doing it. Pastor Will. We'll talk at the end. Pastor Will.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Defrocked.
Always a pastor.
My choice. I actually, my background's mine is Will. My background is actually theatrical lighting. So I started production outside of the church and musicals, opera, straight plays, stuff like that. And I remember a tech week sitting there just looking at the set and looking at the lights going, man, this is really awesome, but how can I use this for the kingdom? And I grew up in the church and was on.
This is when you were at Dollywood?
No, this was.
Will worked as a lighting guy at Dollywood.
This was after.
I didn't
this was
know that.
after Dollywood. Yeah.
Dollywood lighting. LD.
After Dollywood.
Dollywood's a vibe.
Right?
And so I was like, I'd love to do this for the church. I wonder if I can do that, and started Googling large churches in the area. Back then, there wasn't a lot of churches that
This is in
moving lights.
Texas?
This is in
Where is that?
Austin, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I found a large church and was lucky enough to get to do some contract there, and that kind of launched me into full-time ministry for the past 15 years until about 6 months ago.
Yeah, Will's been a full-time pastor, like you said, until about 6 months ago. Will was actually the very first freelancer that I hired for a gig when I started Mosaic. We were friends because we both worked in ministry. I left ministry and started Mosaic, and Will was the very first freelancer, right? I think Will, right? That one mission show.
Yeah, I did the one mission show.
But then he remained a pastor, so he's worked with us alongside us. He does design stuff with me. He does everything. He did all of our shows while he was still a full-time pastor at a church. So he would leave and go back and forth, and he just left full-time ministry and is doing this full-time.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Doing 2 full-time jobs became
Yeah.
a little bit too much.
But what's
so
crazy, he wasn't
decided this one.
the last, 3 years, you weren't even the production guy. You were.
No, I was the family ministry pastor.
Family ministry pastor, yeah. Which
Random.
is so wild, yeah. Full time. So all those family
Promoted.
ministry pastors that want to get some side hustles become a lighting guy. Producer Jeff, who's behind the camera, throws out some questions for me to throw to you guys. There are some great ones just to get conversation starters. What do you find different about working in this industry outside? PGA, obviously, you do both, so you're great to answer this. What's a little different about working in church versus this industry, the outside, we'll call it the corporate side of production? I think it's a little different for us. Sorry to interrupt you, Cynthia. So I'm going to do that. We do a lot of Mosaic stuff. We do a lot of ministry stuff. We're on a ministry show right now, so we do a lot of ministry stuff, and I think a lot of us still do a lot of ministry stuff. But just talk about leaving full-time ministry, going out into this environment. What do you find different about it? Pros and cons.
Yeah, I think the first thing is like it's a lot less warm, I would say.
Yeah.
In a way, like especially in like the corporate production sense, you very much just like show up, do a job, leave.
Yeah.
You know, and luckily, like Mosaic as a company, like all of our contractors and all the team that we work with, we're all very close. So it has like that camaraderie that you have typically associated with church. But even still, it just feels a bit different. You know, when when you're at church, you also like get asked to do a bunch of extra things, and there's just kind of like this assumption that like you're just going to do it because it's for the kingdom.
Yep.
And whereas like you're coming out like on like a corporate production, you're getting paid to do one specific thing and just do it really well and execute well.
Yep.
Whereas like in the church world, you're still wanting to do that excellence, but there's a little more gray line of like where you, like your obligation starts and where your obligation ends.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, like I'm sure all of us have laundry lists of things that we never thought
Plenty
we
of
would
stories,
ever do
Yeah.
in church production, and we're just like here, we're like, you know, when I said yes to this job, 10 years ago, I never thought I'd be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we are. So I think the expectations are like way more clearly defined in the corporate world.
Yep.
And I think it's just because like they have to be. Like there's contracts involved and like so.
Yep.
Well, I think to piggyback off of what you're saying too is growing up in church production and then like being on a live set.
Yep.
Because I did like one-off
I mean, that's
films.
drastically
And,
different.
even
for sure.
before I got into the corporate side of things, jib shoots for music videos and concerts and stuff like that. Going from church world to that rocked my world because, the first year I would say was not prepared.
Yeah.
And so
Just the grace factor? Is that what you like? What rocked it? Like,
just more of like, with churches you can kind of
there's a little bit of grace,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, we messed up. No,
Yeah.
no worries. We'll
Yep.
do the next service.
Yeah.
At least back in the 90s when we were kids growing up,
Yeah.
that's how it was. But when you would get on set, I mean, they expected your A game. Like,
Yep.
oh, I forgot a cable or whatever. Too bad. Like, we're starting without you, or we're waiting on you.
Yeah.
And so there is an excellency that should be brought in both. I think both sides.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I know that most churches nowadays, I feel like, because I have a jib sitting at CCV in Phoenix, and they're very particular on how they want their operators to get that shot for the weekend. So
Yep.
church production has changed a lot.
Yeah, PJ, what do you think that question? I mean, you're like I said, you're in both worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, full time. You dip your foot on both sides of the world. So what do you find drastically different, or even encouragingly different from both sides of those environments?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a similar vein, like it was so surprising to come out of the church world where it's kind of like we all just kind of dive in and we'll
Oh yeah, right.
just do thousands of hours of like whatever to get it done and get this amazing product, or as amazing as we can do with what we have at our disposal. I went from the church world directly into like
touring, right?
Well, no, I was at Disney, so I went from church world where there's really no rules to like who does what to like Disney is all union. I knew what I was doing, and there was rules that decided like each show had to have this amount of people doing these roles, like making sure that people were getting paid like properly. Overtime was being tracked. That was crazy. I was like, whoa, I get overtime now? This is awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Dollywood was not union.
I thought that was only treasures.
They didn't track any of that
I
stuff.
thought that was treasures in heaven. I've been told treasures in heaven my whole life.
Guys, my crown is gonna have so many jewels in it when I get to heaven.
All the jewels.
It's gonna be a big fat one. I know exactly what it's for.
No, but seriously, I remember like a couple months into me starting at Disney, I had this very sweet friend of mine who's still a very good friend of mine today sit me down, and she was like, "Hey, you need to chill out. Like, you're great." She's like, "You're awesome.
Yeah.
We love you, but like, you need to chill out. Like, you're way
That's
too much."
amazing.
And I think that was also like I was like 21,
Yeah,
so I
you're
was also
going.
like
Yeah.
that young giddy
Yeah.
kid. But I was like, I wanted to do everything and help everybody with everything.
Yep.
And they were like, "Let's just focus on like your lighting today. Just do lighting today."
That's great.
So yeah.
That
but,
time-
like, in the church world, that's like you want to do everything. Like that's prime like church production
Oh, those are the
kind of
kids that make it.
100%
behavior.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that. Like if you don't do everything,
Yeah.
like you're probably not going to get
you're not gonna make it.
promoted or anything or noticed.
Yep.
Like this is completely different.
But in this industry, if you do that, you could be stepping on toes. That's
Exactly.
the difference.
Very
Is
good.
you're
If you
stepping on
do-
toes,
yeah.
and somebody's like, "Oh, he's
Absolutely.
trying to take my job,"
Yep.
even though you're not.
100%.
It's just that's how it is sometimes.
That time thing's a real thing. I remember the first national tour I programmed, Bombay Dreams. And I remember sitting there, and I'm programming the console lighting designers next to me, and there's a 50-person orchestra, there's a 50-person cast on stage, and all the other production people, and it's like I need to go fast because all these people are getting paid by the hour, day and
Yeah,
hour
it's-
overtime.
yeah,
And then when
yeah.
you get a step in the church world, it's like, oh, I can be here all week, and okay, cool. It's like you have all the time in the world.
Yeah, that is nice.
How many
I miss those
nights
days.
do you spend sleeping at the church?
in my career, I think I only did it twice, and I'm not proud of it. I really tried not to.
That's pretty good. Twice
Yeah.
is that's pretty.
I've got you there. I got 3.
Yeah.
In a hammock one of the nights
Man.
from the rafters. It was great.
Hammock in the catwalk.
Yeah,
Best naps
exactly.
of your life, dude.
That's what it was.
Well, I'm like PJ. I was homeschooled too, so it was anytime
explained a lot.
away from
Explained a
home.
lot,
Oh,
yeah.
thanks. Yeah. Anytime away from home, and being at the church was fun.
Was
and
awesome.
and
Yeah,
that's where
that's
where
what you loved about it.
I
yeah.
learned
that's
my
where
craft.
your community was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't go to school for anything, so I'm very appreciative of Phoenix First, now Dream City.
Which is also awesome.
Yeah.
As a side note, like, I mean, did any of us go? Samp, you probably did. Samp has like 4 doctorates and just random stuff, calculations.
Not random.
Did anybody go to school for production?
Not a chance.
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah.
I actually did. I've got
course Will.
Yeah, he's got a master's in it.
I do. I have
In
a
theatrical lighting.
theatrical production
Or in
design,
Dollywood.
emphasis on lighting
Masters in
and
Dollywood.
scenic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't even know that's a
You
thing.
didn't, right?
Yeah, that's,
I did masters. The only reason I did masters, my undergrad teacher was like, "Hey, if you ever want to teach college later, you need to get a master's degree."
Oh, that's interesting.
And
yeah.
so obviously I'm teaching
Yeah.
college now.
So Professor Will
Professor-
coming up. Professor.
that's not
Will.
happening.
All the titles.
Pastor Will's
Pastor,
fine.
Professor.
Professor, no thanks.
Pastor,
Senior
professor.
pastor, Professor Will.
Let's go through another one of these, and then we'll get to a good question too. Let's see. I'm going to say one thing I don't like about the dichotomy between church production and our industry. I feel like there's a drive for young church production guys, like, oh, to really make it, I need to get out of the church and get out to where those guys are doing, which I don't like. Like, stay in the church world. The church world needs you if you're qualified. Like, it shouldn't be a stepping stone. Like, oh, I just can't wait to climb the ladder at the church, and then I get to jump into those guys' world. Like, I don't like that. That's a thing. Like, it's been a thing over the last 5 or 6 years. Like, I like the PJ thing, the PJ stories. Like, I can do both. I can even go back into the church world, which I did too. I went back into the church world. What's something you would encourage those church production guys that are thinking that, like, to be successful, to really be at those guys' level, I need to get back out to, or I need to strive to get out into the industry like they are. Like, I would encourage those young guys. What would you say to encourage those young guys? Like, man, stay where you're at, do what you're doing. Like, the kingdom impact. What do you guys say to that?
I've actually told many Uber drivers and random people that have asked me, "How did you get in that? How could I do that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Go find a local church and get plugged
100%,
in, because
100%.
you have access to technology,
And you have time.
and you
like
have
you said.
time.
Yeah, we don't have time.
And you have people who are willing to teach you, and that's rare. And so, soak that up as much as you can. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that can be dangerous too, because falling into what you were saying, because then it almost treats church production as if it's like a stepping stone.
Exactly. That's what I
in
want
your
to get
career.
away from
And-
in our industry.
And I think that it's just more, not to get like Christian and spiritual, but I think it's more of like a heart change that needs to happen there for those people that are in church. And people need to remember that, like, the work in the secret place is honored beyond
Yeah,
the
right.
work that is done in the public place.
Yep. That's
And
great.
so if you sit in the secret place, not only one, if you're spiritual and you believe in God will honor that. That's biblical. But then also you get to grow in your craft and you
Yeah.
get to develop skills and things. Now, granted, there are hard decisions, right? Because at the end of the day, like, the church ministry does not pay the same salary rate as,
Sure.
the
Which is
professional
also,
production
that's a
rate.
bummer.
It is
a
a bummer.
That's a bummer.
But with nonprofits and everything, like, I understand, like, it could be hard when you'd be like, hey, we can either, spend 6 figures to, feed kids in Africa, or, we can give you a raise.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, every time I would say, well, feed the kids.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's hard decisions to be made. And, like, I don't think one is better than the other. I think it's more of a positioning thing, where you are currently with your family, where you are currently with your life. Because I know lots of, like, church production guys that are just absolutely killing it. And,
Which is
like,
awesome.
sure, they'll come out to, like, random shows and one-offs, but if you ask them, like, would you ever leave church? Like, they looked at me like, no, never.
Yeah.
Like, this is my calling.
cool. Which
This
is
is, and I'm thriving. And it's definitely not for everyone, but I think the idea of it, like, being a stepping stone
Yeah.
is a dangerous place to fall, because it, like, really discredits, like, what you're doing.
Absolutely, which I don't. Yeah, that's why I want to get away from that. I think they're amazing people. Look at PJ; he's still in it. Like, PJ's the best in the
Yeah.
biz. Like, like, it's amazing. On the flip side of that, like, just to the flip side of the coin, like, don't think if you step out of ministry that you step out of a full-time church job that you have to stop doing ministry.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was a full-time production pastor for 8 years. I feel like I do more ministry now than I ever did in my full-time church job. Again, it's just a flip side of that coin. Like, so don't think, oh man, I really love doing ministry. If I if I go work for a production company, I'm going to have to stop doing ministry. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's about like maybe you need to take a break, like
Yeah.
step back for a
100%.
while, do
Yeah.
something different. Like you have the skills, luckily, because of the opportunities you've been given to be able to go out and use your skills somewhere else, and then maybe come back to it later. Like
Yep.
take time to just be in the audience, be just an attendee, like part of the congregation.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I also think duplication. So you have to, if you're in church production, get other kids or young guys or young girls, whatever, train them up, because that's the problem that I see. And that's what I saw growing up at my church. There was like 5 of us guys that were very close. And we grew up in it, and they found, again, it's that whole thing. Once you know how to do one, you can do it. And so there's a boundary issue, I think, with churches. And that's why guys get burnt out, is because they're doing way too much and boundaries are being crossed.
Yep.
But I think church production is great because that's where most of us, we all learned that. But
I think
which
it
is
also
awesome. Like,
breeds.
yeah.
you have to train people.
Yeah.
I think it also, sorry to step, I think it also like breeds a different kind of like quote production tech. Like some of like the like grittiest, like sharpest, fastest thinkers I've met in this industry
We're church guys.
have a church backing.
Yeah. I mean, look at most of our crew.
And most of the people that know how to literally take 2 shoestrings and a stick of bubble gum and to turn it into a $1 million production,
Worked at
like
church.
they're all church guys.
Yeah.
Like if you give someone that came into like the production space, like grew up like in the professional space, and you threw them into that environment where it's like, hey, you have the worst equipment you can possibly fathom, and I need you to squeeze every single ounce of excellence out of that, and we're gonna do this for 15,000 people. How does that sound?
We'll figure it out.
Well, I'm saying like if someone like isn't in that environment,
Or changes. I mean, we get
exactly.
the changes that we've got an amazing PowerPoint Pro Presenter guy on the show, Johnny, and they've had so many changes.
Shout out to Johnny.
And he just rolls with it, and it's all because he did it at church. Oh, the worship leader wants to change this song right now, or we're going to go to a bridge instead, and he's 2 seconds later he's ready.
Well, like Will said, where else can you go if you get involved in a local church? And who else has a jib?
Literally, yeah. Just let you use
most
it
guys,
for
most
free.
guys that I deal with training, I tell them, here's a list of churches, go get involved so you can get hours. And that's how I built it. I had thousands of hours before I bought my first jib. Yeah. Most guys can't go out and spend $30,000 on a new rig.
Yeah.
So, and that's with anything. That's with Steadicam. That's with techno cranes. Anything that's camera movement.
Yeah.
And
Use it.
Use it.
Fall in love with it. Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on this episode. Man, so thankful for you guys. Thankful for your commitment to the church, to ministry, to Mosaic. It's an honor to work alongside all of you guys. So stay tuned for more episodes like this. We're going to dive hard. We've got a lot of church production guys that follow along and hopefully listen to this podcast. And obviously we have a lot of church production guys that are on our crew. So we've all got a heart for it. So stay tuned. There'll be more episodes diving into the church production world, our industry, and kind of how those go together. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon.